Lay. Sir. Yeah. Yeah.
Kane is in the building, nigga.
Alright, already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up, the show goes on. Alright, already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up, the show goes on.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Matchup Zone here on a lovely Saturday morning. Today, DJ John Hunt, I'm Kevin Owens, and today we're joined by someone really cool, Dre Baldwin. Dre is a author, and he's pretty much going to be a person that I'm going to personally hijack the show with, and I'm going to just ask him personal shit the entire time because he's pretty much what I want to be. Very successful after playing overseas for a while, and then turned his career into written over 21 books, TED Talks, podcasts, motivational speaker. This dude is awesome, so I'm excited. Plus, he's a Philly native, so that should be a lot of fun.
All right, Kev. I'm inviting Dre right in. There he is. We got Dre on the line.
What's up, Dre? How are you?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
I'm doing great. We're doing good. So first, Dre, I'm just going to tell you right now, what you are is like what I want to be. You have the book, 21 books out, and it's crazy because I just wrote a book about my experiences overseas, and every single time I was like, I knew, a few authors who did it before, and I was kind of like talking to them, and I'm like, okay, Paul Shirley, and I kept on seeing this book, and I was like, looked, and I was like, oh shit, this is awesome. Like, the incredible, books about playing overseas, about doing all of the, overseas thing. It's really cool to have you on to kind of pick your brain because, like I said, I'm hijacking this interview, and I'm going to ask you questions just to help me to kind of, become more successful as the, media field after basketball. So what's up? How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent, and I appreciate the compliment and that introduction there you gave. But I am definitely happy to be here. I'm glad you guys thought of having me on. I'm doing great.
That's awesome. So kind of going in to a lot of there it is. I think the first thing I want to ask is obviously the hardest part, I think, about retiring from pro basketball is stepping out of that limelight, stepping away from the glitz and the glory and staying relevant, because I think that's the toughest thing overseas, guys, especially overseas. Like, you're Michael Jordan, like, you're not going anywhere. Like, you're going to walk into a game, everyone's going to see you and be like, oh shit, it's Michael Jordan. Guys that played overseas, there's not as much recognition. So I think the hardest thing is stepping away, but you've managed to stay so relevant with, writing and motivational speaking and things like that. So what's your secret? How did you build this empire from, a overseas career?
Man, well, the secret, Kevin, is that things weren't always working in my favor. So I had to start looking at other ways to provide value to the world, even while I was still playing, because unlike a lot of players who have careers overseas, mine was probably much more bumpy, probably even more bumpy than yours. So there were seasons where I didn't have a job. There were times where I didn't have an agent. There were times where I didn't know when my next contract was coming or if there would be a next contract. There were times when, I spent months working out in that empty gym and publishing videos on YouTube, which is where a lot of people came to know me online, not because I was overseas, but because I was in Miami in the gym by myself, and people are asking me, well, why is nobody else in the gym? I said, I don't know. I'm just in the gym working out. So because of those things, even before I started my career, actually, to go back, I knew that athletic careers end by, even if you're amazing by age maybe 40, and we're athletes, we're in great shape. So let's say we'll live for at least another 40 years. What else are you going to bring to the table? So I knew I was going to need something else, even if I had the Kobe Bryant career, unless I was just going to sit around, and just count my money every day. But, and the other thing was, if this doesn't work out, And there were times where I didn't have a job. I mean, as soon as I graduated from college, I didn't even have a job. My first year, I worked at Foot Locker and Valley Total Fitness. So there was no guarantee that this was even going to work out. So I'm asking myself, okay, what other skills do I have? What other skills do I bring to the world that will be marketable, where I can at least have some type of kind of life that I want to live? Because I didn't want to work a quote unquote regular job. I went to many interviews. I worked a couple regular jobs and I knew I didn't like it. And I had seen the adults around me growing up. They worked regular jobs. They didn't seem to like them. They did not seem excited to go to work, and they still didn't have any money. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. So I just knew I needed to figure out what else could I bring to the table. And luckily enough for me, the internet came of age at the same time that I graduated from college. So that was a stroke of luck, but I was at least visionary enough to take advantage of it.
It's I always look at, you started, and that's just an incredible story, because I think that's like one thing that I know I get frustrated a lot when I'm like, okay, shit, like, what am I supposed to do? How do I build a social media presence? Like, no one knows who I am. I'm trying to, promote a book and do this and promote the podcast, and you're kind of like irrelevant. So I like hearing the story that, you had your ups and downs and you were working regular jobs. I think that's the lost thing in overseas basketball is just, how much of a struggle it is when you get done. There's no pension. There's no anything like that. There's no overseas players union. You're just out. And now it's just got to figure it out. And that's really cool that you just stuck with it. And what I'm going to say is, because you obviously had success, like, if I love motivational shit. Like, I'm like, every time I see something motivational, I'm like, all right, I'm putting this on my wall. I'm giving this to my daughter. I'm going to talk about this. So this is a question, like, why would anyone listen to me? Like, like, anyone who follows the same path, like, why would they listen to me or someone who played overseas who no one knows? How do you get those people to listen and continue to grow this business?
Great question. So are you asking, when you say people listen to you, are you talking about players, or are you talking people who are not athletes?
Just everyone. I think, you're great because you not only give speeches and do motivational conferences with, businesses, but you still talk to players and things like that. So I think almost like outside of basketball and outside of the basketball world, because I feel like we always have that connection to the basketball. We're always going to know a coach or a player or this or that. How do you grow that social media base outside of basketball?
The biggest thing for me is, and that's a great question, because every athlete, unless they're going to go, again, do the regular job thing, they're going to have to figure that out in some way, shape, or form. The biggest thing for me was that I had found my voice. I knew even from back in 2001, when I had this really slow desktop computer, where I remember I would type in ESPN.com, then I would go take a nap, and hopefully the website was up by the time I woke up from my nap. That's how slow the computer was back then. I knew I wanted to have a website. I knew I wanted to have a web presence that was about me, because I just felt like I had some ideas and some perspectives on just life in general that was not like everyone around me. And I didn't know what that would morph into. And nobody knew that blogging, YouTubing, podcasting, self-publishing, nobody knew this stuff was coming. But I just had that vision. So for me, it's kind of like they say, the proverbial 10,000 hours of just talking about whatever it is on your mind, putting your work out there. The same way we put in that 10,000 hours on the court, I put in that 10,000 when it came to articulating my thoughts and my perspectives. So I developed this unique voice, and just the way that I talk about things and the way that I see things. And I was making basketball videos for several years online, probably in the early 2000s. And around 2009-ish, players started asking me about the mindset around it. Like, what gets you showing up every day? How can you be as confident in a full gymnasium when all the fans are there as you are when you're by yourself? Or, how do you keep working out when you got cut from your high school team 3 years in a row, which is what actually happened to me? And how do you even get started in all this stuff? So I just started talking about these things. And a lot of it, Kevin, I thought it was natural to me. I thought it was just normal stuff that everybody understood. I thought every basketball player went to the gym and worked on their game every day at the same time, consistently. I thought these were all normal things. But what I found out when I started talking about it was that these weren't normal, and that some people, this was brand new ideas, brand new information to them. So it's kind of like sometimes you get so comfortable with your own knowledge that you don't even realize that it's valuable to other people. So as I kept putting my voice out there, and I learned what made it unique from other people, then I just pressed on that advantage. And what happened was when I started talking about the mindset thing, to answer your question directly, people who didn't play sports started reaching out to me and telling me like, hey, I don't play basketball, but I follow your material just so I can see that weekly motivation video you put out every Monday. But Tuesday through Sunday, I'm not watching those basketball drills because I'm not trying to learn how to do a crossover. But that mentality thing you're talking about, that stuff applies. I can use that at work. I can use that in my personal relationships. I can just use that in everyday life. So that planted a seed in my mind, Kevin, that when I was done playing ball, I knew what else I could do. I knew what else, like to follow up on the first answer I gave you, how else I could bring value to the world was that sharing with people how the tools that I needed to succeed in sports also apply in other areas of life.
And that's awesome. And kind of jumping off of that, because, reading your stuff and I know a big philosophy you have that you teach people is something that I was taught, and I don't think I was taught in college. And when I started playing professionally, I was playing in the D League, which is now the G League. And I had a coach who was just like, stop trying to do everything good. Like, you're trying right now, you're working on 10,000 things. You're on the off season. You're like, okay, I need to do this, do this, do this, do this. And he was like, stop. He's like, I need you to come back here next year and you are going to be the best rebounder in the league. All I want you to do is this. Work on your jumping, work on your boxing out, work on your positioning. And, because you're a good rebounder, I want you to be the best rebounder. And that's what I did. And I found so much success. And that's what prolonged my career and kept me going, is the fact that I honed in on a certain skill. And I think that's what you teach a lot of your players, a lot of your clients. You teach them to hone in on one thing and be the best at one thing and not be the best at like everything, because it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to do 1,000 things, but I love what you say, just honing in on one thing and, making that the most successful thing you have.
Absolutely. And sometimes you can create that thing because everybody can't be the best rebounder. I mean, like Dennis Rodman was a great rebounder, but everybody can't do that. Everyone can't be the best scorer or the best in this like plain vertical that everyone knows about. Like the only player I've seen who's kind of great at everything at the same time was LeBron James. I haven't seen anybody else do it. So, and what you can do sometimes is come up with the mix between things. So, for example, actually, this is author by the name of James Altucher. I don't know if either of you heard of this guy, but he talks about this daily practice of coming up with ideas. And he says when you come up with ideas every day, you train your muscle of your brain to come up with new ideas. And what happens is those ideas start intermingling with each other. And he calls it idea sex. So the ideas start having sex with each other and the idea has a baby. So now you have a cross between verticals, and now you got something new. So, for example, Twitter was the idea sex between blogging and text messaging or something like that. Instagram is the idea sex between instant and photographs, or something like YouTube is the idea sex between videography and putting it on the internet. So what I did was I kind of created that idea sex between, for example, I was not the best basketball player ever. I mean, you said you played in the G League. I tried out for the G League and I didn't make it. So I wasn't the best player to play basketball. And I also wasn't the first person to publish content on the internet, but I was the first person to combine workouts and the internet. And that idea sex became a new thing. And then I took the mentality that you need to play sports and combine that with how you can use that in business. And I have it a certain way that I talk about it. I have a certain language. There's a certain dialect that I speak that it just resonated with people in the way that I talk about things. So that the idea sex was that I created a new vertical. So I may not be able to be the best tennis player, Serena Williams, or the best golfer, but I could be the combination of the best golfer / tennis player, something like that. But so just figuring out what's the intersection between the skills that can allow you to own your own space. So sometimes it's creating a brand new space. Another example that everyone knows, we had cell phones, we had MP3 players, we had laptops, and then Steve Jobs said, we're going to combine all of those. We're going to put a computer, a cell phone, text messaging, and an MP3 player all in one device. And nobody had done that before. He created a brand new lane, and now it's ubiquitous. Now everybody has it. So for everyone out there, if you aren't able to dominate just a plain vertical, a common vertical that everyone knows, you can create a brand new one just by combining ideas. But then you have to press on it. You have to press on that so people understand this is what you're really about. This is what you're really doing. And people eventually come to say, okay, this is a real thing. It's not going away. Okay, I'm interested in that. And it takes a little bit of time, but you have to be willing to stick to it and keep working on that thing, similar to what you said.
And I love that. And you know, kind of going back into your, you know, your playing career, you know, I love anytime I see a guy who started out, you know, high school, you know, was trying to get better and better, and then goes to college and got better and better, and then goes on to play pro basketball, because there's so many people who are so good at high school and then they suck the rest of the time, and then you're like, you just start surpassing them. And that's like my favorite, because that's what kind of player I was. So kind of take us through. I know you you know, you played at Penn State Altoona. How do you transition from Penn State Altoona to overseas basketball?
Well, I mean, going to that school, being a D3 school, I had walked on at a school that was actually only like provisional D3. And at the time, you can only play 2 years of sports. I played 1 year there, got recruited to Penn State Altoona, which was a D3. Didn't even play my senior year there because the new coach had come in and, you know, clean house. I was one of the casualties of his house cleaning, not because I didn't have talent, but because he just wanted his own players. And graduating from college, I just knew that I didn't want to, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I didn't want to work a regular job, because every example I saw of people who did, they weren't excited about it. They never had any time, and they never had any money. So I'm like, what is the actual goal of doing it? I didn't want to do it. So even though I had to compromise and work a couple, you know, regular jobs, still living in my parents' house after graduating from college, I just went and got me, as soon as I got my first check from Foot Locker, I went and got me an LA Fitness membership. And every day that I wasn't at work, I was in the gym. So that way I would get to the gym early in the morning. I treated it like a job. I would get to the gym at like 8 or 9 in the morning, and I would work on my game in the empty gym. This is 8 or 9 in the morning on a Tuesday. It's empty. Then I would rest a little bit. Then I would lift some weights, rest a little bit more, do some cardio, rest some more, go get me some Wendy's or McDonald's to eat. And this is when I'm, you know, 22, 23. You can get away with that. And then I would come back. And by this time, it's about 5 p.m. And this is when people get off work and they start coming into the gym to play pickup. And I would play pickup at night. So I would literally be in the gym all day, just, you know, working on my game and just keeping my game sharp and looking for that next opportunity. So my transition period was that. And I knew that the only way I was going to get on playing pro, being that I came from a D3, nobody knew who I was. I was a nobody in the professional basketball world. I was pretty much a nobody in the college basketball world. And for me to get known and for me to get seen, I would have to go somewhere where people who have some power, who have some say, can see me and be impressed by my game, and then they can do something to help me out. And as far as I know, the only way to do that at that time was going to an event called an exposure camp, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. But for those who don't know, exposure camp is basically like a job fair for athletes. You go show your game off, you try to impress someone, and hopefully from there you get an opportunity. The catch-22 of an exposure camp, I don't know how many you've been to, Kevin, but the catch-22 is basketball is a team sport, right? 5-on-5. Yep. But everybody there is trying to impress, even your own teammates. So it's really hard to impress and play a team sport when everybody on the team is trying to show off at the same time. So when you watch the NBA games, there are players who are sacrificing. They're playing a role because they know that's going to help the team because they already have a contract. They're getting paid either way. But at an exposure camp, everybody's trying to show how good they are. Nobody wants to sacrifice. Nobody's setting the screen. Nobody's giving up their body. Nobody's being selfless to let other players get the points because everybody's trying to show off because they all paid $300 to come to this camp. So luckily I was able to walk that balance, and I impressed at that exposure camp. I got a scouting report from there. I got the footage from there, and I started shopping myself because I didn't get signed off of the exposure camp, but I got good footage and a good scouting report. And I shopped myself around to basketball agents because as far as I knew, that they were the go-between between the teams and the players. And I found me an agent, and that agent said he would represent me, and he's the one who actually helped me get my first contract. So I remember the day I was still working at Bally Total Fitness after the exposure camp. This was around June 2005. Then in August, 2 months later, that's when the agent hit me up, let me know the team wanted to sign me. And I remember going to Bally Total Fitness and telling the manager I just signed the contract to go play overseas. He just shook my hand and said, good luck. And that was it. So that's how I got started. That was my transition period to getting into overseas.
That's like, it's crazy. I feel like this show, it's like, obviously you wrote a book called The Overseas Basketball Blueprint. Like this is, yeah. I think any athlete, high school, college, or overseas, like this is incredible stuff because, you know, you are the like poster boy for this entire, like, you're like the Rocky of basketball. Like you just kept working and kept fighting, and that's like, it's so cool to hear that kind of story. And I'm not technically Philly, but like I'm on, grew up in Barrington across the bridge, but it's pretty cool to kind of hear that. And funny story, overseas exposure camps are crazy. The only reason that I played professional basketball is because there's a guy, John Humphreys. They called him the helicopter. He played on N1 mixtape.
I remember him.
He was at the same exposure I was at. And everyone knew who he was. Like, he was just dunking the ball so effortlessly. And we ran a drill where it was like the chase drill where, like, I'm like behind him and I have to go up and try to block the shot. And I swear to God, the dude in front of me stopped and tied his shoes when he saw that he was there. I was like, shit. And I just was like, fuck it, like, I'm going. So I went and I challenged him, and he dunked on me so hard that, like, the whole place went nuts. But because of that, a guy, like a scout from Europe, came up and he's like, it took like a lot of balls to jump with that guy. Like, most guys would have just, and you like went hard, like really trying to block it. He's like, I like your effort. And from there, it was like, that's kind of what I became known for. Just like, high energy effort guy who, not only couldn't always score 30 points a game, but, played hard. So it was pretty cool to kind of hear your exposure in camp and how crazy it is, how like that butterfly effect can completely change an entire career. And it's awesome to hear. So going back to the overseas basketball blueprint, and I'm going to ask a completely selfish question. So, John, sorry, like, fans, sorry, this is completely for me. What was your experience when you wrote the book? Did you have a publisher already? Did you have, did you sign a deal? Like, what was your experience with the actual publishing process?
So one thing is, with the I just got to ask you about that question. The helicopter, he was about 6'4", right?
Yeah, he wasn't like huge, but he could, and he was like, he was like real strong, and he could fly.
Okay. All right. So, and the other thing is, I'm actually from Philadelphia. I don't know if you knew that, but
oh wow,
my hometown.
Love it.
Yeah. I live in Miami, but I'm from Philly. But to answer your question,
sounds better weather-wise.
Yeah, it is most of the year. So, as far as my writing goes, of my 27 books, one of them I did through a traditional publisher. That's my book, Work on Your Game. But the Overseas Blueprint, I published that through my company, Work on Your Game Incorporated. So as far as the book goes, I know the biggest challenge a lot of people have with writing a book is actually just getting the words on paper. That wasn't really a challenge for me by the time that I wrote that, because like I talked about earlier, just having that 10,000 hours in, I don't know if I had 10,000 by the time I wrote that book, but I had been doing a lot of writing. So my first entree onto the internet was actually blogging before YouTube. I was blogging in May of 2005. So I've always been writing. So writing has kind of come, it feels natural now, but I had put the time in. So as far as getting the book out, that's what you're asking about. It was, first I just made an outline. What are all the things that players kept asking me? Because when players saw that I'm this guy that they could actually access who has played pro basketball, even though I didn't always have a job. That's how many of them came to know me, from these empty gym drills I was doing. But they saw that I had played. They just asked me questions. So as far as my creation strategy goes, all I do is answer questions. I just see what questions people keep asking, and I just keep answering the questions. That's all I do. So writing that book, I just made an outline of what are the questions that I keep getting asked. And then all I did was each chapter, I just answered the question. I just answered the question in writing, gave them what the answer is. I explained why I gave that answer. I tried to cover any of the, the follow-up questions people might ask. So I'll say something like, you need to go to an exposure camp. If you didn't play D1, you don't have any game footage, you need to go to an exposure camp. So somebody might say, well, where is an exposure camp at? Or how much is a camp going to cost? Or what if, whatever the what ifs are. People always come with these what ifs, especially in the comment section on the internet. So I tried to handle all the what ifs and all the questions and all the follow-ups in one answer so that there would be no further questions. I want to make sure I'm giving you everything that you need to know so there are no excuses. That was basically what my angle was for putting that book together. And that's pretty much how I wrote it. And then once I had it done, as far as the design and all of that, if you're asking about that, you want me to talk about that?
Yep.
Okay, so the writing and the interior formatting is pretty basic. I didn't do anything about it back then. I didn't know anything about it, didn't care. And to this day, it doesn't really matter because not a lot of material on that subject out there. So I'm not really competing against anyone. And as far as the design goes, I think I did that maybe on Canva, or I hired somebody on Fiverr to do the design. I knew about getting the back cover done, the front cover done. All I did was just read some articles, some blog posts about how to put together a book and publish it on Kindle Direct Publishing, which is Amazon's platform. I knew what size it needed to be. I just read up on these things. These are one-page guides. It tells you exactly what you need to do. It's not very hard, but it seems hard until you do it. But then when I did it, I said, oh, this is easy. I can do this forever. So then I just put it together, put it up, had it up on Amazon, because that makes it, quote unquote official. And then just let people know, hey, I have this book. If you want to play overseas, I just laid it out. Here are the things that you need to know. And the reason why I wrote the book, to even go back in it, is because when I was coming out of college, guys, there was no information about playing basketball overseas. There was zero. Nobody was saying anything. There were no videos. There were no blogs, nothing. There was just Eurobasket.com, which still exists. That was the only place. Right. And there was a little bit of a forum there, but mostly it was just people just talking trash to each other. It wasn't anybody actually helping. It was just people just saying stuff. So I would read it sometimes and laugh about the things. And then you can see who's getting signed, who's getting the job and all that, which is cool. But if you don't have a job, that's not doing anything for you. So what I was looking for is can somebody just tell me what I need to know, what I need to do, and maybe give a little bit of explanation of why. And I appointed myself as someone who was capable of doing that. Once I had a little bit of experience, I say, all right, these are the things you need to know. And I was writing from the perspective of being the nobody player from like a lower level school where you didn't have great stats, you don't have great film, you had nobody scouting you, you had no offers, you had no prospects, no nothing. Can you still make it happen? So I was writing for that. That was my target audience. So that's how I put that book together.
Hey, Dre,
Awesome.
I'm sorry, Kev. I just want to jump in real quick.
Oh, go ahead, John. Go.
I'm sorry, man. I was just looking at your email. I saw that, like on your email tag that, that you're offering a couple books. I think the Blueprint one is you're offering just to pay, for the consumer to pay shipping. And then there's the Mirror of Motivation, which I just bought it. Just so you know. I got to be honest, like, you struck when you started talking about how you take like sports and motivation in sports and you apply that to real life and stuff like that. It really struck a chord with me, and I started looking at it. So I was like, all right, I got to read that book.
Excellent.
Can you talk a little bit about that particular book and the Mirror of Motivation? And like I said, we dress all this stuff up and put it out on YouTube as well. So I'm going to put links and stuff like that. But if you want to talk a little bit about some of the book offers that you have on your own websites, and maybe talk a little bit about Mirror of Motivation.
Sure. Well, I have a lot of books, and I used to tell people about a bunch of them. But what I found is when you tell people too many things, they get confused and they do nothing. So
gotcha.
We'll keep it simple, and I'll talk about the Mirror of Motivation, and we'll just focus on that one. So I got the book right here in front of me. I keep it close by, so since we'll be on YouTube, everybody can see it. The reason why this book is a book that I usually tell people about this one even over the overseas ones, because how many people want to play basketball overseas? Not that many. It's a very niche audience. But I tell people to get this book of mine first. This is where you should start, is because, and the subtitle of this book is The Self-Guide to Self-Discipline, because my whole philosophy these days is called Work on Your Game. It's based on 4 principal tenets. Number 1, discipline, showing up every day to do the work. Second is confidence, putting yourself out there boldly and authentically. Third is mental toughness, continue to show up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you're expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And then personal initiative, making things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And the reason why I start with this one being the self-guide to self-discipline, that's the first principle, is because everybody who is going to listen to a show like this, you have something that you're looking to get, something you're looking to achieve. You want to go somewhere. People don't listen to podcasts or informational shows of any type unless they're looking to get something. They want something they want to do. And most people understand that you have to give something to get something. You're not going to get something for nothing in life. You have to put some effort and time in. The question that most people do not ask, though, this is the third key question, is who do I need to be? What type of person do I need to be? How do I need to approach life? How do I need to see myself when I look in the mirror? What kind of energy do I need to have? How do I want other people to feel about me when they encounter me, when I walk into a room? What I want the conversation to be about me when I'm not in the room? That energy determines a whole lot of what you do and how you do it, which determines what type of results you get. So when people ask me, how can I play basketball like, people say, how can I dribble like Kyrie? How can I have the Mamba mentality like Kobe? You don't have to become, Kobe's 6'7" and have a 40-inch vertical, And you may not be able to be Kobe, but it's the mentality, it's the way that he looks at the game, the way that he looks at himself, the way he sees himself, or any player or any person, period. When you can assume their mentality, then your actions are going to create different results. So what I tell people is when you affect that, the whole process in life is be, do, and have. Most people in life think about what they want to have, then they just start doing stuff, right? Working hard, grinding, hustling, no days off, team, no sleep. Now, we see these things on social media all the time, but I've known a lot of people, and you guys probably both do as well, people who work all the time, yet they don't get the results that they want, even though they're working really, really hard. So what's the problem? Is there something wrong with them? Is there something wrong with their strategy? Do they have the wrong goals? No. The problem is they have never asked themselves, who do I need to be? And everyone who's listening, I know it's a long answer to your question, but
No, I love it, man. Keep going. Keep going, dude.
All right. Everyone who's listening has had a situation in life where you were trying something. You felt like you were following the right strategy, the right plan, the right process, right everything, but it wasn't working. You weren't getting the results. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, your energy changed. Maybe you became more confident because somebody told you something. Maybe you became angry because you just got mad and frustrated over the situation. Maybe you became focused because someone told you, hey, here's what you need to change. This is a little thing, and that'll get you the result. Maybe you saw someone else achieve the outcome, and it gave you more belief that you could do it. What changed is your energy, your being changed. Then you went and did the same thing you've been doing for the last 3 months, and all of a sudden it worked. All of a sudden you got a different result. That is because your being changed, your doing did not change, the result that you wanted did not change. So this book, The Mirror of Motivation, to come back around to this book gives you the framework for who you need to be so that you can do what you need to do and have what you want to have in life. And I want to make sure everyone understands the title of this book is The Mirror of Motivation. So this is not Dre hyping you up. This is not me giving you a motivational speech. This is you telling yourself what you need to do, because I won't always be around. Jonathan won't be around. Kevin won't be around to hype you up every day. We won't be around to help you out when you're overseas in, Italy, and the coach says something that you don't like and you only played 10 minutes in the game and you don't know why and you don't know what to do next. This book will be around for you to help yourself. So you can get this book by just covering a small shipping charge and going to mirrorofmotivation.com. That's the title of the book without the mirrorofmotivation.com.
That's awesome.
I just did it, man. It's so easy. Took me 2 seconds. I was like, I'm getting that book. It's on the way. It's being shipped.
Well, right now I'm about to call a drywall guy because I'm about to run through this fucking wall right now. So.
I was thinking the same thing, Kevin. I was like, I want to run through a fucking wall, dude.
Can you guys come over? Because there's going to be a 7-foot hole in my wall in about 2 seconds. This is awesome. Honestly, I told you I love motivational stuff, and that's like it's something that everyone can do. It's like this world is always, I feel like we're getting, like, with social media and a lot of stuff, like, it gets us almost lazier, and to have that motivation still there and to be able to pick up a book and, like, find yourself. And like you said, it's not me saying it or John or anyone. It's like it's yourself, and that's the coolest thing. And I love that. And I'm going to order a copy. I think that you're like selling, it's going to be crazy. A lot of people are going to hopefully buy this book and get this book, and great promo right now. So I do have a question, and I know this is, you've probably answered this question before. Athletes, why do athletes make the best employees? Because I always think, I always go back on that and, like, why would an athlete make the best employee? If you're a business person listening to this, like, why do you think an ex-athlete would make the best employee?
Man, several reasons. One reason is athletes are competitive. It's just by nature to play a sport, you have to be willing to compete. So if it's any type of job that would be competitive, a lot of sales jobs, they look for athletes. They even advertise. They even say things like, hey, we're looking for athletes to work at this job. And they might not even tell you what the job is. You find out it's 100% commission sales job. But they look for athletes because they're used to competing and they're used to eating what they kill. Another reason why athletes make good employees is because athletes understand a performance culture in the sports world, especially when you're talking about playing basketball overseas, or if you're on the fringes of any professional league, like NFL, when you're a practice squad player, or you're at the end of the roster on an NBA team, if you don't perform, you don't have a job. You don't have a guaranteed contract. Or if you do, it's such a small contract, it doesn't matter if the team cuts you. It doesn't hurt them that much financially. So you have to perform every single day. I remember hearing, you spoke about the Helicopter and N1 mixtape. we all remember Rafer Alston, the skip to Malou. He actually made the NBA. And I remember watching the N1. Remember when they were on ESPN, the TV show?
Yep.
And Rafer Alston was on one episode. He had just shown up to one of their games. And this was around the time where a lot of the N1 guys were starting to get big headed. They were starting to say, man, we can play in the NBA. If Skip can do it, we can do it. And they had Skip in like one of those just talking to the camera by himself. And he said, these guys don't even come up to me and ask me what I did to make it because they just think they can do it because I did it. And then he said this is a key thing I heard him say. He said, these guys don't understand how hard it is to be the last guy on the end of the bench of an NBA roster. They don't understand how much work it is to be the worst player on the team. He didn't call himself that, but to be the last guy on that roster. And the thing is, that performance culture, and when you go into a job, you'll understand you got to show up and deliver every single day. And if you don't deliver, you could be out of a job because a lot of people don't understand that when we talk about overseas basketball in the NBA, a lot of people don't understand the overseas basketball world, let alone have they ever seen a game. If an NBA roster is 12 people, players 9, 10, 11, and 12 could easily be replaced by somebody playing overseas.
Oh, easily. Yep.
Easily. And maybe your starting 5, maybe your 8-man rotation, those guys are really solid. They probably wouldn't be replaced by an overseas guy. But the guys at the end of the bench, you can grab somebody out of Spain, Russia, China, Turkey, could easily take those people's places. But a lot of casual fans do not understand that. So you had to perform every single day to keep your job. And Kevin, you know as well as I do, overseas, you have a bad couple of practices. Right? You could be unemployed that fast. So that's the second thing is the performance culture. The third thing for why an athlete makes a great employee is that athletes understand discipline. It's just an inherent part of the game. Showing up every single day to practice, hearing the same stuff from the coach. You might have a coach who doesn't even speak English, but you have to act like you're paying attention to what they're saying when they're talking for 20 minutes. The same drills every single day, the same warm-ups every day. You could be the only American on the team. You're the best player on the team by far, but then you're not starting. You only play 15 minutes in the game. Your team loses, and you're like, all right, why the hell am I not playing? I'm clearly the best player in the gym, but I'm not getting in the game. I've had this happen, and the coach didn't speak English, so who am I going to complain to? And this is the discipline that you have to have as an athlete. And the last thing is just athletes have that commitment. I mean, to be an athlete, you have to commit, especially in the basketball world. Less than 1% of people who pick up a basketball ever get a chance to play professional basketball. And if you're not committed to that job, you're not going to make it. And no matter how much, maybe if you're super duper talented, maybe you can make it anyway. But most people don't have that level of talent. Players you see in the NBA making an all-star game are such a small percentage of the wider world of professional basketball even. So athletes, usually once they decide they're in on something, they'll be around. They are not going to flake out on you. They're not going to ghost you. They're not going to just disappear. They will continue to show up as long as they see some potential for themselves to grow and advance at what they're doing.
I love it. I totally agree. Just talking about overseas and like the last guy on the bench is so true. I know, my experiences of working out, trying to get into the NBA and trying out for different teams. There was times when I was like, holy shit, I'm a lot better than this guy, but I'm 27 and he's 21.
Right.
So like, they're like, oh, potential. And I'm like, but I'm better than him now. But I get it. It's like a crazy thing, which is what I like, about overseas basketball becomes. And, I like how the G League has really started stepping up and actually having it be an actual minor league system. Because I do think, like you said, not all the time are the 400 or so best guys in the world playing for a specific roster. It could be a lot of these guys overseas are just as replaceable. And you talk about, the top 5 to 10, those guys are the best in the world. But when you start getting to that, like 12, the guys on injured reserve, it's like, damn, they might be rookies. They might be young. So I think that also, like, guys, everyone thinks playing overseas is so easy. I've talked to a lot of people like, I think I'm going to play overseas basketball. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, oh, really?
Right.
Like,
it's just like I'm
so
going to go
hard.
join LA Fitness, right? Yeah. Like, it's that simple. Yeah,
like,
so,
I'm just going to go, jump through a hoop. It's like, no, dude, like you have to really work. And I think that's why I started this podcast is to kind of show overseas basketball, to talk to guys like, you, Dre, and, a lot of guys that played, to show like the work that it takes to get in there. And also to just kind of share some stories and like, shoot the shit a little bit. I think it's like fun to have all these guys that you have this common experience with, and guys can listen to this podcast and be like, oh shit, like, you know, I can do this, or I'm picking something up from here or here, or this show or this show. So that's why I love doing this. And you're like inspiring, because I'm trying to hone in as I'm going through. I'm like, all right, let me jump on the next question. I'm like, oh shit. And I start getting sidetracked. Like, how can I make myself better in the middle? I'm like, oh shit, I got to focus. So it's like,
I've written like
that.
4
That's
things
so
down
good.
in my own journal over here already. Like, I'm like, oh, I got to remember he said that. All right, now I'm going to do that, you know?
Meanwhile, I'm planning the next 2 years of my life. I'm
Yes.
like, oh shit, I need to make sure I get this done. I do love, you know, your books and your just approach. You are brutally honest. And that's a cool thing. And that's something that, you know, kids these days are like, huh? Like old school, like we grew up, people being like, you suck, do better. And you're like, okay. And like now kids are, everyone's like, you're awesome. And they're like, I know. So it's like, I like that brutal honesty that you can kind of give. That's kind of a lost art with like coaches, because players these days, they don't want to be told that they're not the best. And I love your brutal honesty with that. So, you know, do you see that being a success, like with the guys that you work with basketball wise, you know, when you're like, dude, brutal honesty, do some kind of shy away a little bit from that, you know,
So
what's the word I'm looking for? Toughness.
Yeah, to answer that, now I have friends who are college basketball coaches, and I ask them these questions. I ask them, I say, how can you talk to players these days as opposed to how our coaches talk to us? Players that I played with in college, and they say, yeah, you have to talk to them differently these days. You can't tell them what our coaches used to say to us, because they will not accept it. They won't take it. And the thing is, to answer your question, it's kind of like what I spoke on before, is that I establish my voice. Like, people have a pretty good idea. If someone's thinking about, let's say, working with me or reaching out to me about anything, they Google you first, right? So they Google me, they can watch a couple of my videos, they may read some articles, they see how I talk. I think it's pretty clear within 1 or 2 pieces of content, the type of person that I am and how I communicate. So when it comes to the question that you're asking, do athletes kind of bristle at my communication style? No, because those type of athletes who would bristle don't come to me. All right, they don't reach out to me. They may reach out to somebody else because they say, all right, I'm not going to reach out to this guy. But when I talk to people who are in my audience and I ask them, what is it about me? What is unique about me that you don't get anywhere else? And it's kind of like, it's exactly what you just said, Kevin, is that you're going to not sugarcoat things. You're going to tell people the truth, and you're going to give it to people how it is. And they really appreciate that. And it's funny, you know, I hear people tell me that in private more than they tell me that in public, because depending on the topic that I'm talking about, but I understand it. And in general, these days with athletes coming up, I mean, I'm not in the coaching world. I'm not a personal trainer, so I don't deal with athletes on a personal level that much, but I can see on social media and things like that, just in media in general, even when I'm just talking to people on Instagram in the comments or Twitter replies or emails, I can see that it's a little bit different world. We have no participation trophy culture these days, where everyone wants to be included, everyone wants to be recognized, everybody wants to get some type of, you know, it has to be equal, right? Everything needs to be equal. You got something, I got to get something. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Actually, let me take out the word necessarily. I don't agree with that. I think in life, everybody is not equal. I mean, there's a 7-footer and there's a 6-footer. All right, the 7-footer is going to get more job opportunities than the 6-footer, and that's just the game. I tell people all the time, I mean, my mother's 5'7", my dad's 5'9". Had I been 5'8", the average of them, instead of 6'4", I could have did the same work, same mentality, same hustle. I would not have become a professional basketball player, and we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. I would have had to have done something else. And that's just the game. This is just the way that it works. And sometimes in life, like, people need to understand that there will be inequities, there will be imbalances, and everybody's not going to get the same outcomes, because everybody ain't the same. Everybody doesn't have the same opportunity. Everybody doesn't have the same talents. And if someone wants to deny that, they don't want to accept it, they think that that's wrong, or they feel like they need to try to do something to fix it, you can try, or you can take my word for it. But it's up to you. It's your life, you know, what you want to invest your time and energy in. But this is just the way that it works. And sometimes somebody's just better than you. And that's just what it is. I remember, I'll give you an anecdote. Charles Barkley, when the Phoenix Suns went to the NBA Finals in 1993 to play the Chicago Bulls. Barkley had just won the MVP. He just got traded from our hometown Sixers, to Phoenix, wins the MVP, goes all the way to the finals. Everybody's like, man, this is Charles Barkley's year. They go against the Chicago Bulls, and obviously the Bulls ended up beating them. And Charles Barkley tells this story. He says he told his daughter, who was really young at the time, that, hey, honey, Daddy's going to win the NBA championship this year. I'm going to win the championship. And his daughter said, well, how you so sure you're going to win, Daddy? And Charles said he told his daughter, he said, because I'm the best player in the world. And then when the Bulls beat them, his daughter came up to him. She remembered what he said. She said, Daddy, you said you were going to win the championship. What happened? And Charles said he looked at his daughter and said, baby, Michael Jordan just better than me. And that was it. And that's why he lost. But sometimes in life, you just have to recognize that the opportunities are not going to be equal everywhere. You just need to figure out where you have an advantage, and that's where you need to focus your energy. And I'll give you one last thing, especially with the sports world. A lot of young men grow up thinking that sports has to be their thing because that's what they see. They see that the successful men are entertainers and athletes. But there are many other ways to be successful in life, number one. And number two, ain't enough jobs for everybody to make it in sports. Everybody can't become a basketball player or a football player. There's a cap on it, as opposed to being a podcaster, a lawyer, or a doctor, where as many people as are qualified can get in. In the sports world, there's a cap. Everybody can't play. So you have to really be honest with yourself about what you can do and what you can't do. And if you make a bad judgment decision there, then it's just going to cost you time. And time is your life.
It's very true. Yeah, it's like, see, this is the cool stuff. This is the shit that like people need to hear. You know, not everyone's created equal. Everyone, you know, I'm 7 feet tall. If I wasn't 7 feet, I weighed 195 pounds my freshman year in college as a 6'11" dude. It wasn't fun. I got pushed around a lot, and I think that's when I started developing the mentality like I need to do something. And it wasn't until I actually started lifting weights and I realized that as I got stronger and I could, you know, go in there and dunk on people, I was like, oh shit. Like it's like a realization, and it changed my life. It changed how I played the game. Because you know, you're talking about college coaches. Like I think, and I'm going to say the P word because I know this is an offensive word. So I'm going to say the P word, but I've never in my life, my college coach called me that more than anyone else in the history of my life has called me that word. I was like, oh my God, like, because it was true. Like I wasn't tough enough and I had to kind of get stronger. So like you're saying, like you have to handle it different than you know, it was handled back in the day. Cause that word was just like, that was the go-to. Like, oh,
Kev, I can't, like, I've only known you as like a giant walking around a middle school, you know what I mean? Like, so I cannot imagine anyone calling you that word.
Yeah. Well,
I've blows my mind.
As muscles make you tougher. They don't make you smarter, but they make you tougher.
Right. And you know something interesting, and back in our day, you know, you both were around before we had phones, right? Before we had social media. Yep. And someone says something to you that you didn't like, you didn't have that many different avenues to go elsewhere. You were basically there with those people. You were there at that school with those people, with that family, those friends, and the people in your neighborhood. You couldn't go anywhere else. Nowadays, if a player hears something that they don't like, they can get on their phone and they can talk to anybody in the world. They have all these different communities and pockets that they can get involved with. Whereas 20 years ago, even, it wasn't that long ago, 20 years ago, you were pretty much stuck where you were at, and you couldn't see what was on the other side of the fence because you didn't know there was a fence. You were just where you were at. So I think that's another thing that plays into what we have these days.
It's so true. And kind of like, you know, again, very selfish of me. You know, when you're talking about, you're talking about the amount of hours it takes to create a successful book, and, you know, you've written 21 books. That's crazy. You know, and I that's what I want to, like, I love the motivation because now I wrote a book and I finished it, and it's right now in the publication being shopped around. And the one thing that I thought is, like, even now, like, I will go back into that book, even though it's being, like, you know, the treatment's done, the you know, transcript, everything's being shopped around, and I'm still like, this sucks. And, like, it's just that motivation of just, like, I need to just let it go. And I think that's something that I struggle with personally, of just, like, I'm like a perfectionist. I'm like, this isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. And that almost overcomes, like, you know, the success that I could have, because I'm like, I'm not going to do this until I'm perfect at it, as opposed to being like, you know what, give it your best shot, put it out there and see what happens. And I think that's why, you know, when you're talking about social media posting, I'm like, I can't post anything because everyone's going to be like, this is stupid. Shut up. Like, no one wants to hear you. And I'm like, fuck. I think you're giving me motivation to kind of be like, you know what, step up my game on social media and things like that. And it's really cool to talk to you because you're so successful. You're exactly what I wanted to do with the books and the motivation and stuff like that. So it's really cool to kind of hear your perspective. And this is awesome to have you on and talk to you a little bit. We really appreciate you having you. It's so cool. And
Absolutely, man, I appreciate it.
we got to get that. We got to get, yeah, hopefully everyone's buying up, the Mirror of Motivation and I want to, Overseas Blueprint, all of your books. It's awesome. It's great having you on. So we're like super psyched that you were able to join us.
And I appreciate you having me on. And one thing I can tell you about the books thing is sometimes that thought crosses my mind, even me. I think it does to every author. Like when somebody says to you, hey, I just ordered your book. Now I'm like, all right, I hope the book is actually good. So when they read it, it lives up to what they thought it was going to be on the sales page. So that does cross your mind. But I remember I heard an author, Bill Simmons. Y'all probably know Bill, the sports guy with the Ringer. He talked about it when he writes his books. He did the book of basketball. He says it's kind of like sending your kid off to college. I mean, you raised them for 18 years. You taught them everything you taught them. Now they're going to go to school. Whatever they're going to do, they're going to do. Now you send them out into the world, and whatever happens, happens. Nothing else you can do. You can't just keep going back and chiseling down everything that you think needs to be different. You just put it out there, and however it is however it is. And as far as with publishing, period, on social media, everything comes and goes. So I don't even really think twice about things on social media, because once you publish it, you publish something on Instagram and people love it, but the next day is old. Right now, we need something new. You publish something on Twitter, 20 minutes later is old. So just letting things go. And in general, man, just being an athlete and the fact that you were able to take your experiences and your knowledge and put it into a book is a great thing, because I think a lot of people want to write books. Every time I tell people I've written a book, they say, man, I wish I could write a book, or I want to write a book, but they never actually sit down and do it. So you actually did it. So you put yourself in a very small group of people who actually went and got it finished. And then when you get it into your hands, I think that's going to be another big moment for you, just to know that you did it.
I totally, this is like, Dre, like, honestly, how much do we owe you for the therapy session? Cause I'm
Yes.
like, I feel like I'm like a better person today than I was about an hour ago. And it's really cool. Like, you really have a gift with, with your motivation, and you do, like, even just speaking to you about all of your experiences are so cool to hear. And I'm glad that we were able to kind of have this time to talk to you. And anyone listening, it's great to kind of, see how successful. It doesn't matter what stage of your life. I'm 40 years old. I went through basketball, and that's like my biggest thing. I went through basketball. I was like, I'm the shit. And then I retired from basketball, and it's like, I suck. And I'm like, all right, let's just bounce back this life. But I think that's, like you were saying with athletes, I think that's the way that we always are. It's always like, you always want to better yourself. And like, that's one thing that I like appreciate, you with your motivation, because it helps better, even as you go through and you're not in the limelight anymore, to continue striving to be successful, continue striving to always be your best version of yourself. And that's so awesome to have you on and actually have our listeners, hear your story and all your success. It's great.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think it's a great niche that you all have here for athletes to figure out what they're going to do next. Because a lot of athletes don't even consider it until they're done. And they wake up the day after their career is over, or not even knowing their career is over, wondering what to do. So it's definitely needed. There's a void in the marketplace for that.
I love it. Totally true. Again, Dre, thank you so much for hopping on today. We'll be in touch. If hopefully the book will get published and put out, and I'll definitely shoot you a copy, and would love to, see what you think. My book is completely different from yours. Is very motivational, and mine is just like the crazy wacky shit that I went through playing overseas basketball. It's like almost like a comedy. Like, it's just me being like, what the F, like the entire, like for 200 and something pages. So,
Right.
but it's a lot of fun, and I really, I appreciate you guys. If you're listening, check out Dre Baldwin, check out all his, his books, his TED Talks, his motivation. Follow him on social media and get those motivations. It's going to help your life tremendously. Dre, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, thank you. You got an audio version of that book? Did you record it?
No, I didn't record it yet. I have everything
Okay.
to record it. I probably need to do that.
Yeah, all books are big nowadays.
Yeah,
You should definitely.
that's like a main thing that I listen to. Have you done audiobooks? Do you record all your books?
Yes, all of them.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I need to work on my like
You'll get it
diction
on
too.
that,
I
Kev.
feel like I get a little sloppy with how I talk and just be like, oh, and people are like, this guy's.
We'll
voice is
we'll hire
so
someone out.
annoying."
We'll hire someone out. We'll hire a talent.
Yeah, 4 hours of you talking. My God.
You know what helps with that is if you get a book that you like
Mhm.
and read that one out loud.
Oh, that's a good one. I like
Yeah,
that.
read
See,
somebody else's
like
stuff out
tips
loud.
and everything. Dre, I'm like my success on this book is going to be pretty much in your hands. Thank you so much.
Well, I'd be happy to say I played a small part in it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dre, for coming on.
All right, thanks guys for having me on.
Take it
Thanks,
easy, buddy.
Dre, and
Later.
Dre Baldwin. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for listening, John. That was awesome, man.
Dude, I like I said, as he was talking, I just looked on his like we emailed a few times to get him all set up today, and I was like, well, all right, so let me check out what this is on this thing. I just wanted to learn a little bit about him, and like I was like, man, all right, this is an incredibly good deal. And I just like people go through stuff in their lives, and I was like, this applies to me, this applies to me, this applies to me. Yeah, I'm gonna buy that book. You know what I mean? And then he started talking about it. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to read this thing. So. Yeah, some really good stuff. And when you said you wanted to run through a wall, I was about to like say that on the mic. I was like, dude, I feel like I want to run through a wall. This guy's he just incredible speaker. He gets it. You know what I mean? He gets it.
Yeah, I took a voice and diction class in college, but I feel like I have like a weird accent and I have a weird voice. It's like very Ray Romano-ish. So I do need to if I want to get the audiobook, I need to like really work on my diction and get that out there, because like I said, like I hate hearing myself talk. Maybe other people enjoy it. Obviously, we have a podcast, so if disregard that last comment, actually listen, keep listening, guys. Like, oh, you hate hearing me. I kind of hate you hearing you too.
It's funny you said the Ray Romano thing, and I never thought that about you, but now I can't think about anything else.
There's nothing else I think about. Someone told me that one time, and it was then from every point that I've spoken from that point on, I think I was like, shortly after college, I was like, oh shit. So every time I open my mouth, I'm like the fucking woolly mammoth from what's that movie?
Ice Age.
Ice Age.
Yes, sir. And
Yeah.
I wasn't even going there until you said it, man.
Now, like, yeah. So everyone's gonna be like, oh shit. So if you're listening, yes, I voiced the woolly mammoth. So if Ray Romano can voice like Ice Age 6, however many there are, I think I can I think I can audiobook the book and
yeah, we'll work on it, man.
I love it. It's awesome. John, you rock. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, man.
DJ John Hunt, on the producing. And I will say, you're every time you're asked to do more. This time, we're like official. Like I need to get a headstock and stuff, or like the whole entire picture and stuff of our show for our like, what do they call it, masthead, whatever it is at the bottom where you sign your name, because we're chatting with Dre and his producer, and we're like kind of like, oh well, John's like, I'm the producer, I'm gonna start, and then like you're sitting, it's like, wow, we need to really like.
Well, it's been cool. It's always been like a dream of mine to get into this type of thing. I almost went into communications, ended up going in to be a music teacher, but communications has always been a passion of mine, and it was neat to talk to, because I don't know if we said this on the show at all. It's something I want to talk about, the fact that people are coming to us now and saying, hey, I'd love to be on your show. So if anyone out there knows someone that's looking to get a plug or whatever, just contact us, at the Matchup Zone, and we'll talk about it. We'll get you on.
And my crippling lack of confidence too is I'm just like, what? Wait, they want to get on the show? Like, and it was just kind of like, oh, why? Like, what, why? Huh? But it's pretty cool. I'm loving it. I'm loving the show. I'm loving doing this with you, John. It's a great time. So,
Yes,
again, we apologize for the delay. John and I both teach at the same school. And it's September, man. COVID, it's been a trying month. So we're glad we're able to get back, and now we're kind of get back on the schedule. We're kind of in a routine now, so we'll get back to it. So we appreciate you guys listening. You guys all rock. DJ John Hunt, thank you so much again.
Yes, sir. I'm actually going to DJ right now.
Nice.
I'm running out the door to go do a communion, man.
Nice.
So you take the
DJ
work
John
where it
Hunt. Check
comes,
him out,
man.
everyone. DJ John Hunt. Awesome. So
Doing the
again,
kids'
thank
party.
you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you guys next week or, next time, and we'll get another show going, and it's going to be fun. And thanks, Dre Baldwin. Guys, it's been awesome. Until the next time, peace out, keep it real, and we'll talk to you then.
My real friends never hearing from me. Fake friends write the wrong answers on the mirror for me. That's why I pick and choose. I don't get you confused. I got a small circle. I'm not with different crews. We walk the same path, but got on different shoes. Live in the same building, but we got different views. I got a couple cars I never get to use. Don't like my women single. I like my chicks in twos. And these days, all the girls is down